Okay. So the thing about teaching a government class, and why not start teaching government in 2020 is, but any year really, is that things come up. So we have our lessons, and you all, I know you all well enough that you're smart enough and clever enough that those lessons will work to a degree. We will ask questions. We will clarify things when we have class together. It's tricky because I see you once a week. This is a week where Wednesday is a B day, and we should adjust accordingly. And we're good. Okay, whew, we're good. Okay, charger, no problem, no problem. Yeah, chargers are there. This is nice with, we're a smaller group. There's of course a plug over there. You all know how I feel about the charger cables going across the front of the room because I don't want to die. So yeah, we're good. So anyway, we have something we need to talk about. So my question to start out today is, what do you know about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Sam, oh, go. I love the excitement. Give it a shot. Oh, come on, you built up that suspense, and that's what you're going to do to me? Really? Go ahead. Pioneer for women's rights, fought for women's rights as a lawyer. As a lawyer, she worked for the American Civil Liberties Union for a long time. She pushed for a lot of cases that changed a lot of our laws in terms of things like equal pay for women. There used to be this crazy idea that he might have a job and you have a job and you have equal qualifications, and for some reason he got paid more. And he feels really bad about it now. Okay, what else do you know about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg? She died on Friday. So this is what happens in a government class. It happens sometimes in a history class, that something historic happens, something significant with our government happens, and we have to address that and learn some things earlier than maybe I had planned. I had a plan walking out of here Friday for today. Life happens that way. She died on Friday. Now, we established she was a lawyer and that she, sued, through lawsuits and the power of a lawyer, what she can do as a lawyer, did a lot for women's rights, pioneer in that in many ways, but she always would recognize those who came before her in that fight, okay? But I have the title Justice in there. What was her most recent job? Supreme Court Justice, second woman appointed to the court. We've had 4 appointed. Second, only 2. Sandra Day O'Connor. When I made this bulletin board, I had no clue, okay? But when you look at the bulletin board, I took the big ideas that the College Board gave us, and I tried to make them kind of creative and pretty, because you're like, I'm in high school. I don't need little thought balloons, Mr. Ferrer. I'm too cool. What's with the bulletin board? I taught preschool at one point in my career. I've worked with elementary age kids. I've worked with every age there is, okay? I don't know. If you want things looking miserable, what the heck? But I kind of was like, what historic figures or current event figures do I want thinking about these things? And I had James Madison for constitutionalism. That makes a lot of sense. I figured the 2 candidates in this election could think about competing policy making interests. That's a lot of what our elections are about. When it came to liberty and order, I was like, Supreme Court justices make a lot of sense, okay? And there's a ton of Supreme Court justices that could deserve to be there. I went with these 2 mainly because I didn't want it to be another white guy thing, and I think they're both important, okay? One appointed by a Democrat, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed by President Clinton. One appointed by a Republican, Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the Supreme Court. So anyway, I didn't know that when I put it there, so there she is. She'll be looking over you all year, okay? And she died on Friday. Now, she's a Supreme Court justice. Why does this matter? Yes? Right, and now this is an AP government class, but we should know some of the basics. And of course, we know that the United States federal government has 3 branches. What are they? Just say it louder so I can hear. I don't hear very well. Executive. Give me another. Judicial. And I didn't give myself enough room, as always. Give me the other. Legislative. I'm putting in this in particular order because you're going to need to know more than you did in U.S. history. And one of the things you need to understand is when we look at the Constitution, it has several articles or big sections to it, like the main sections. Article 1 is all about the legislative branch and how it's set up. Article 2 is about the executive branch and how it's set up. Article 3 is about the judicial branch and kind of how it's set up because it's the one that they kind of left wide open. Like you go read them, you'll like, man, Article 1 is pretty long. Article 2 is pretty long. Article 3 not so long and kind of vague, okay? But we know we have these three branches, okay? And in fact, we call the legislative branch, what do we call it? Congress. We got to know the basics. If you don't know this, like in May, this AP test is going to be rough, okay? I know you guys know this, okay? But we're just going over some stuff. Executive branch, what's that? President. In judicial branch, the justices, it is the Supreme Court and the lower courts. You should know that we will probably often refer to the Supreme Court as SCOTUS this year, meaning Supreme Court of the United States, okay? And it's important to understand what each branch does or remind ourselves what each branch does. So Congress makes the laws. The president executes or carries out or enforces the laws, and we know the courts, of course, interpret the laws. And they are all really important. We know that. Now, how many justices are on the Supreme Court? 9. Trick question. She died on Friday. There's actually technically 8 right now, but we have 9 seats. Okay? We have 9 seats. We often go with an odd number. Nothing says it has to be that, but an odd number makes a lot of sense. Why? Yeah, we're never tied, right? We've had Supreme Court decisions that close, 5-4, a number of times. Okay.
So do they like have like is it in a document that says if there's only 9?
No, it's determined by Congress, the number. Originally, I think we had 5. At one point, we had 6. If you remember when we studied Roosevelt, he wanted to bump it from 9 to 15. You're close to a bunch more. That's close. That's good enough. He would have appointed all 6 of them. In the end, he appointed a good number of them because he had such a long term of service. But yeah, okay. And so it's really important for us to that's a great question, understand that. But we kind of agree that 9's a better number than maybe 8 or 10, okay? Now, this kind of matters because, well, the timing of it, history is like that. This is a very historic thing happening. Supreme Court justices sometimes retire. They can do that if they'd like. They have the term for life. And sometimes they die, okay? And she passed away on Friday. Now we need to go through the process of getting a new justice. And this is where the timing is really interesting. So, how do we get a new justice? Okay, so the president appoints or picks justices. Some people might say, President Trump can't do that. He can. That's part of his job. Now, how soon he picks them and so on is a different story. So the president says, I want so-and-so to be the next Supreme Court justice. What happens next? Who votes? Correct. So it's important to remember that we have actually two houses of the legislative branch. We have the House of Representatives, I'm just going to put House of Reps. When we're talking government, it's when you say the House, we know we mean the House of Representatives. Okay? If we're talking in government and politics, we know, yeah, they passed a bill in the House. We know what that means. Okay? It's not like it's at your house. Oh, really? Did his mom make cookies afterwards or what? No, okay? All right? We know what house. The other one is the Senate, and we're going to talk more about the differences as we get into this more. But it is the Senate that then hears, meaning they have a hearing, they ask them a lot of questions, and votes on the nominee. And I should say the word nominee and not the word justice, because they're not a justice yet. Okay? So that process is important because the question becomes how soon? Why is that important right now on September 21st, 2020? We've got an election coming up real soon, a little over a month. Okay? So now it gets kind of political. This is a politics course. So I want to play for you. I don't do this a lot for AP classes, but CNN has a resource called CNN 10. You may have watched some in middle school or maybe in global. Okay? CNN during the school year puts out most school days, Monday through Friday, CNN 10, a 10-minute newscast. So whenever people say like, I got no time for that, you know, like you should be keeping up with the news. Got no time for that. I got the TikToks to work on. Got a lot of Instagram work to do. I got no time for that. CNN 10 is 10 minutes. If you're driving to school, there are news podcasts that are real fresh. I listen to Axios Today, for example. Okay, why? It's 10 minutes, and they take usually a really big story, and they run with it. You kind of come in feeling informed. Okay, you can listen for 10 minutes on the way to school. You can come to APGov, and you can be, hey, Ms. Pratt, I heard this story about such and such, and you're going to look, you know, like a rock star. Okay, you can handle 10 minutes. So, I want to play the first 3.5 minutes of today's CNN 10. Because it really gets into that. And it's got a catchy tune, so you can dance. I'm about to go club on this.
21 days into the month of September, and on the last official day of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, we welcome you to CNN 10. I'm Carl Azus, back in our home studio. Outside the U.S. Supreme Court, memorials appeared over the weekend. They were in remembrance of Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away last Friday at the age of 87. In the Supreme Court's announcement of her death, Chief Justice John Roberts said America has lost a jurist of historic stature and that the Supreme Court has lost a cherished colleague. Justice Ginsburg.
By the way, Chief Justice John Roberts was appointed by a Republican president, George W. Bush. He, not always, and he doesn't have to, we'll talk about that, but he tends to, you know, favor more conservative decisions. And yet, while he and Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't agree on everything, he is able to, you know, really respect the work she did, and she did work hard.
Had been battling pancreatic cancer since 2009. She'd served on the high court since 1993 when she was nominated by President Bill Clinton. Ginsburg was the second woman to serve on the court. Before that, she'd worked as a law clerk, a law professor, a U.S. appeals court judge, and a lawyer for the American Civil Liberties Union. Women's rights was a deeply important issue to the Associate Justice.
In my lifetime, I expect to see 3, 4, perhaps even more women on the high court bench, women not shaped from the same mold.
When she was confirmed in 1993, that is Senator Joe Biden, now running for president. Just wanted to point that out.
But of different complexions.
Hold on a minute.
Ginsburg was the second court as a law clerk.
I just saw
on the
something
high
else.
court bench, women not
I believe that is, she was working probably as clerking for one of these senators. I believe that's Elena Kagan, who later became, who's now a Supreme Court justice as well. Neat.
Shaped from the same mold,
I could be
but
wrong.
of different complexions. I surely would not be in this room today without the determined efforts of men and women who kept dreams of equal citizenship alive.
In recent years, Ginsburg served as the most senior member of the High Court's liberal justices. She took a liberal position in her votes on a number of controversial issues, from abortion to immigration to healthcare. But Ginsburg also shared a close friendship with Associate Justice Antonin Scalia, who was known for his conservative positions until his death in 2016.
I want to go back to that for a second. Really kind of another critical thing to think about. You can be politically opposite somebody, and I know social media doesn't always show this. We see people get nasty. We see families, you know, have these terrible Thanksgiving meals over this stuff. But Justice Ginsburg, who was probably as far left as you could get politically, or pretty far left, and Justice Scalia, Antonin Scalia, who was pretty conservative, pretty far to the right, okay? They were not just cordial to each other and professionally respectful of each other. They were actually friends, like they hung out together. Apparently they both loved the opera, so they and their spouses would go to the opera together and have dinner together and things like that. We can do that, America, okay? Griffin disagrees. Yeah, I know better than that, okay? So just keep that in mind, that in this class, we have to be very respectful. I think Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg are a great example. Both really smart people, by the way. They were both really smart people, and I think we can learn from that. Gabe. That is, I believe that appointment is made by the president, but still, once again, the Senate would have to approve that person's the chief. So, for example, John Roberts has less experience in some of the justices, but that was an appointment made and determined by the other two branches. Great question.
At that time, there was a political controversy over Justice Scalia's replacement, and it seems history is repeating itself ahead of the process to replace Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, serve for life. That's why presidents regard these judicial appointments as such an important way to extend their own legacies. The Constitution does not set out a resume that a Supreme Court justice has to have. There's no requirement in the Constitution that a Supreme Court justice even be a lawyer. But traditionally, presidents have nominated impeccably qualified sitting judges. Both presidents and senators like to say that the confirmation process is all about qualifications, but it's really also about politics. Virtually every important issue in American politics and even American life winds up in front of the Supreme Court. And they have the last word, both the president and the senators trying to figure out how the nominee stands on the hot button issues that the Supreme Court deals with. And that's why the senators will vote yes or no.
And it is the responsibility of the Senate to confirm or deny presidential nominees to the High Court. That's established by the advice and consent clause of the U.S. Constitution. But a political fight is brewing over the timing of appointing Justice Ginsburg's replacement. Generally speaking, Republicans want to appoint conservative justices to the Supreme Court, though they don't have to vote that way. Democrats want to appoint liberal justices to the Supreme Court, though they don't have to vote that way. The president is a Republican, and the Senate is controlled by Republicans. So with an election coming in November, it may benefit Republicans to try to nominate and vote on Ginsburg's replacement now while they control the White House and Senate. This could help them appoint another conservative to the court. It may benefit Democrats to try to delay the process until the new year in the hopes their party will win control of the White House and/or Senate. That could help them appoint another liberal to the court. Of course, it's a gamble any way you look at it because neither party knows what will happen in the election and both parties want to look good to voters going into it. We will be following this controversy in more detail this week. As far as the current makeup of the Supreme Court goes, 5 of its members were appointed by Republican presidents, 3 of its members were appointed by Democratic presidents. 10-second trivia.
We're going to stop there. The answer to that question is Colorado, by the way. Anyway, couple important things there. Just because a Republican president appoints someone a justice or not a nominee and they get approved doesn't mean that person has to always rule on the side of conservatism. Just because a Democrat appoints someone doesn't mean they always side on kind of the liberal side of things, okay? We've actually found some of our more liberal justices in our history were appointed by Republicans, for example, or they were at least moderate. We've had ones appointed by Democrats that have sided on maybe what they consider the more conservative side of things. This is not about like their political opinions, okay? This is about how they interpret the Constitution. So for example, Justice Scalia that they mentioned, who died in 2016, and just so you know the process, he died in February of 2016. President Obama made a nomination, but the Senate, which was controlled by the Republicans, did not give that person, Merrick Garland, a hearing or put it up for a vote. And so you're going to hear the Democrats kind of throw that back at the Republicans now. Okay, you said we had to wait because Obama was about to leave office, or we're going to have an election this year, and now we're about to have an election even sooner. Maybe we should wait to see whether President Trump wins or not. Okay, and so there's going to be that battle in the weeks to come. So we may look at some other clips of this. But we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of how our government works. And we have this idea of limited government. That was one of the principles you looked at in your very first assignment. Okay, and we are seeing that up front and for real here with this idea of checks and balances, that the 3 branches check and balance each other out. So do pay attention in the weeks to come, okay? Any other questions? So we got a couple things out of that, like what's happening to the Supreme Court right now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and that we need to pay attention to the news some more, okay? Like some people like Supreme Court justice, that's kind of like big news. There's like a lot of news out there that's not, huge news, okay? But all these things kind of matter. Oh, I'll give you another example, like, what the president says and does. President Trump was looking to stop TikTok from operating in the United States. What? Why? Does anybody know why? It was a Chinese company, and they found a deal around it that he's been agreeable to, and that is that a couple of American companies, I can't remember which ones, but some big ones. Walmart, there you go, thank you. Like, what does Walmart got to do with TikTok? You just never know who owns what, right? Thank you. I knew it was like, I know it's like one of the big ones, thank you. Yeah, that with some American companies taking on the American branch of TikTok, it's good to know your TikToks have been saved, okay? Cool. I know. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yay. I've never done a TikTok, so there you go. All right. Some of you are like, that's better that way. All right. Now, so this stuff really matters to the everyday life, that sort of thing. All right. What I want to do now is I want us to go into Schoology. I'm going to show you something that some of you have already been shown. I'm going to show you something that some of you have probably been maybe using a long time, but I want to make sure we know. So a lot of us use, and always, that's why students ask me at the due dates, is that the right due date? And sometimes it's user error, and I had it wrong. But a lot of us use the upcoming feature here on the right, which is really nice, okay? You can kind of look and say, okay, what do I have going on in these different classes? What's coming up? So on and so forth. But I want to go up to the calendar, which if you're in the top red bar here, it's the one right to the left of the little, the little envelope there. It looks like sort of like a calendar. I sometimes get this one mixed up, but if we go to the calendar, and I know some of you have been shown this. I think if you had Mrs. Click last year, she might have shown you this, or this year. But the Schoology calendar is something kind of really overlooked. I honestly overlooked it last year. I probably should have shown you guys this. So you'll see a couple things. There's a calendar. It'll say something of something calendars. I happen to have 26 because I belong to 26 courses and groups. Every time you join a Schoology group for for your sports or your club, okay, there's a calendar for that. They can add calendar events. And what this means is on my calendar, I can see events from those 7 things. And if you click on that, you'll see your list of, you'll see your courses first. They have the little like notebook icon next to them. And then you'll see your groups. They have like 2 little people kind of icon, okay? And there's a number of reasons why I turned off a bunch of them. Some of them are groups I had to join as a parent that I probably need to like unjoin. I don't really need to see their calendar events. I turned off study hall, but honestly, study hall really doesn't matter because I don't know, I'm never going to leave events for my study hall group. You know, I'm not going to give my study hall assignments. But I definitely have my classes checked off. So in the calendar, whoops, I can see the various assignments from those classes here. But if you go back here, you can also color code those. So if you click on the little box to the right, you can pick a color for each class. Like I've made APGov kind of purple for, I got a purple bulletin board, and just purple makes me think of APGov, okay? And so when I look at that calendar, I can see, you know, like based on color. And that helps me a bit, okay? And just, you know, kind of distinguishing things. But the reason why I like to have all my classes together is then I can really see kind of the whole workflow here. Like, for example, if someone was taking all of my classes, it wouldn't be, that'd be crazy. There's a lot of work due today, okay? And so you can kind of see, you know, your math course with your science course, with your social studies course, all kind of stacked together. I would also say in terms of college, getting a handle on a good calendar is helpful. It doesn't have to be an electronic one. Some people are all paper, okay? My wife and daughter are, every year it's like, you know, it's like the biggest shopping spree of the year is what kind of calendar are we gonna pick out? Because some people like to have a big paper thing that you can see everything. The Schoology calendar is nice. There is a way in the settings, I can't remember how, but I can probably help you figure it out, where you can actually connect it to your phone calendar. So like my Apple calendar on my phone, those events pop up, okay, on my phone. But I like to look at the Schoology calendar because it shows the whole calendar, and it gives me kind of an idea like, oh, on Thursday when I'm home remote learning, I really don't have anything due, but that would be a good day to get ahead on some things. I think that's, you know, that's that time management piece. So I just wanted you aware of that. I apologize if you've already heard this from another teacher or your counselor or whoever, but I thought it was worth just kind of pointing out to my classes, okay? All right, so for this week, today we're supposed to work a bit on 1.4. You've been doing the discussion on it. You've done some reading and watched some videos on it. But I do want to talk briefly about the Articles of Confederation, and I want to get into a little bit of political science with you. With that, you're going to work on 1.3, which has, you notice 1.3 and 1.5 are in the format of like a little puzzle, an assessment / quiz. So when you open it, it's going to look something like this, I think. I don't know why it centers everything, but it's going to have your directions. I have some videos in there for you to watch. It's going to walk you through reading Federalist number 10 and reading Brutus 1, okay? And so it's about ratification of the Constitution, but they made that topic 1.3, but then they doubled back to the Articles, and that made no sense to me chronologically. But I want to talk about the Articles of Confederation. You know we set up a confederal government, but I want to talk about what that looks like a little bit, okay? Where we get into a little bit of political science. So, and it goes beyond what you learned in US history last year, okay? So when we look at types of governments, we look at what types of governments are there when it comes to distribution of power. Okay, when we distribute things, we get into who do we give it to. Okay, if I brought in a bunch of treats, I might distribute them. I probably won't, but I might distribute them fairly. Olivia gets a chocolate chip bar. Aspen gets a chocolate chip bar. Bella gets one, Sean gets one. Okay. I mentioned chocolate chip bars because Mrs. Pereira makes really good chocolate chip bars. I'll talk with her this year. She makes them incredible because her first ingredient is love. Anyway, my kids make fun of that. For love. Yes, thank God for love. I know. I hear you. Okay. I agree. So anyway, or I could distribute them in a different way. I've only brought some in for the ladies today. I could do that. Okay. Or we'll have a contest. Whoever's wearing a blue mask gets one. Boom, boom. Okay. All right. How I distribute them matters. Well, when it comes to power, who's making the decisions, who's telling what other people to do, we can distribute it differently. So one format is called a unitary government, where all key powers, it says, are held by the central government, a very strong centralized government. And in fact, back in the 1780s, when we talk about the story of America, there's another country involved in that story that had a pretty strong central government. Who was that? Great Britain. Great Britain had a unitary government. So when the American Revolution went down, they said, this is a lot of the problem. The central government has too much power. Now, what are some advantages of a central, highly centralized government? Like if we say, Spin, you got all the power. You're making all the decisions. What's good about that? Things will get decided fast. Maybe not right, but at least fast. Have you ever, sometimes we want someone else to make the decision for us, right? Okay? Like if your family's deciding to go out to eat and it's like, you don't care where you eat, because me, I just want food, And I'm like, just pick somewhere. Okay? Have you ever been in a situation where everybody's trying to make a decision, everybody's trying to give input? Like, you and your friends, like, where are we going? I don't know. I'll go there if you go there. Well, I'm only going to go there if you go there. Okay? I always love that, like before middle school dance, you see some kids, like they got dropped off and they're standing out there and they're trying to decide whether to go in or not, or all of that. Okay? It slows things down. But a unitary government, things get decided fast. We, of course, know in the American Revolution, when they formed their own government, they formed what's called a Confederation government. It's the other extreme, where the power is distributed very decentralized through the states and through the local authorities. Okay? Disadvantage, hard to make decisions. Advantages, though, there's less chance of an abuse of power. And we talked last year about how it didn't work out so great, right? And that's what your assignment was about. Where states had to volunteer their choices. That's one thing about a confederation or confederal government. It's voluntary. So if you want to have a tax, all the states had to agree to that. And some states would say no, like Rhode Island, we talked about them saying no all the time, and so on and so forth. It didn't work out so great. Get to Shays' Rebellion. How many of you last year went to Daniel Shays'? Great, I'm just curious. I used to think it was such a great idea. Have them go places, and now I'm like, I can't let them go places anymore. It's like crazy, okay? Or at least you can go there. I can't encourage you, I suppose. Anyway, it's outdoors. So Daniel Shays' Rebellion, government can't stop it, can't keep the peace, can't keep domestic tranquility. We need to fix it. And in the end, they come with a completely new government under the US Constitution. It's what we call a federal government. Okay? Where we're going to have a sharing of power. And that's something you want to understand when you're reading Federalist number 10 and Brutus number 1. There was a debate over, and this is what the Anti-Federalists said, over we think we're giving too much power. Okay? So the Anti-Federalists saying, and the Federalists saying, our problem is too much local control. How do we balance those two out? And how do those ideas show up in our institutions, in our government? Okay? So another way to kind of look at this, I'm not going to, no, where is it? Come on. I just got another visual. There it is. Okay. I wanted you to see that. Okay. So when you look at these three, unitary system, top to bottom, national government tells the states what to do. Okay? And the United Kingdom, by the way, is still a bit of a unitary system today. That pretty much Parliament, makes the decisions for England. I'll give you a great example of this, or I think it's a cool example. For some reason, over the last 6 months, my wife and I have been watching a lot more of Hulu and Amazon Prime, right? Who hasn't been doing that, or Netflixing, all that? Is Netflixing it's like a verb, Are we Huluing it, What? All of it, the whole UK. Great question, because the UK, so they have representation from Scotland, and so they're centralized, yet there is some local power there, right? Correct. Yeah, it's a United Kingdom. It is a little trickier, but when it comes to things like defense and other, they're sort of like us with the various states. Yeah, well, the word state can mean, we often talk about someone being a head of state. The state also refers to a nation. They actually, and they actually don't, they call them, when you get down to the smaller, they get into what are called counties. And they have some local control. But the example I want to give is when we watch Amazon and Hulu, one of the things my wife really enjoys watching, and I like a lot too, are the British detective mystery shows, right? And I've gotten to learn a lot about the British police system through it. It's kind of fascinating. Like I know the ranks, a DCI, that's a detective constable inspector, or a DS is a detective superintendent. I know them all, okay? Or detective sergeant, I know them all, okay? But, well, most of them, I shouldn't say all, but most of them. But the other thing I find fascinating about those shows, not related to what we're doing, is the detectives don't carry sidearms. Like on Law and Order, they got a gun, they hear a thud inside and they're like, get their gun out right, because it's American, get your gun out right away. There they don't. They have a special team of specialists, so they really have a dangerous situation that they call in, who are trained like SWAT basically. But the regular detectives, like if you try to make a British version of any of our shows, I think they made like a British Law and Order. Those detectives don't carry a sidearm. I found that fascinating. It's like, stop, or I'll tell you to stop again, bloke. I don't know, okay? It's like, I really am like, do they feel safe? But anyway, the other thing I kind of picked up on, is that the police system's kind of run by the whole country, okay? In other words, if you're a detective in the Metropolitan Police Department of London, you could get moved to another city or to some small town or whatever, okay? Whereas here in America, like, they could transfer you to a different shift or whatever, but if you go work for another police department, you basically have to apply there and all of that. I found that interesting, okay? And there's some other countries that are more this unitary system. We went to the other extreme during the Articles of Confederation, okay? But this is what we end up with. The power comes from the people, and it's shared by the two. So keep that in mind when you're reading those documents. Keep in mind how federalism kind of works, okay? Questions? I'm going to let you go a minute too early because I got clean desks, okay?